I like the little tone thing. I don't know if you heard it or not, but it gives me a gong saying, hey, when the 1 minute timer is up, it's up. So how you doing, Marilee?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so excited that you're here with me. Um, Anybody who doesn't know who you are, well, they need to get to know you. You can get some more fans, more followers. If you don't know Marilee, Marilee is a longtime friend. We actually went to high school together. Not going to say what year we graduated. Yeah, exactly. But neither one of us look our age, so it's okay. You wouldn't believe it if I told you. Marilee's, in my opinion, one of the top network marketers I've ever known. I've known a lot of them, and she's just high quality, high skill, high class. And I had the opportunity to see a video that you did, Marilee, down in Mexico, talking about avatars, which basically is, it's the same thing as an ideal customer. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. Even though your main industry is network marketing, you've got a lot of background in other things too. So I thought with that in mind, we should talk a little bit about how businesses and how people in general, consultants, whatever type of business they're in, can define who their ideal customer is, who their avatar is. Especially right now, because there are so many people starting new businesses and starting things online because they can't go outside, or they can go outside, but in very limited numbers. So I've seen some stats that there are tons of online businesses starting. So I thought it'd just be great if you and I could talk about how people can find and define what their ideal customer is.
Absolutely.
So hey, how was that? Was that a good intro for you or what?
Absolutely. Honored to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Mary, and how you got into all of this marketing stuff, and we'll just kind of play it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing, I think, is just something that, life in business, when you're in business in general, you figure out it's a very important piece to everything you do. And, even prior to my backgrounds in network marketing, I've been in network marketing for 13 years now.
Wow.
Which is crazy, amazing, but crazy. But prior to that, my husband and I have owned traditional businesses. I actually worked in marketing with another company. It was in the yacht charter industry, and really helped to identify, who were they, give them an identity, and then literally try to target our audience. And so, learning from all avenues of business in general, I think it's an important message to really hone in on who your customer is. It's how you're most effective, understanding who you are first, what's
Right.
the message that you're trying to give, and then identifying your audience. And so from all aspects of life, I think it just makes us a better human. It makes us a better communicator, and it makes us a better friend. If you think about marketing in general, I think that, we say this, in my industry, we talk about it, but I think it's true in life that your vibe attracts your tribe. And it's just those people that are around you, the people that are in your world, the people that you do business with, the people that you hang out with.
Right.
And we say this in my industry as well. We're in a know, like, and trust business, but I believe that's true in every business that you do. If you think about that, in every avenue, whether you're shopping online at a company, a brand that you love, a store that you want to frequent, when we're out and able to shop in stores.
Right.
But anybody that you're giving business to, anybody that you're, if you've seen advertisement on the television, online, wherever it is, you as a consumer have to feel like you connect with that company, with that brand. And if that company or that brand is resonating with you, you're going to give their business.
Yeah.
You're going to want to work with them. You're going to have that conversation. You're going to want to spend time there because it feels good. You make that connection. And I think that just life in general, and a little bit of my background in just marketing, owning our own businesses, We own a traditional business as well currently. And, I certainly know my demographic, my avatar, right?
Right.
So I know the conversation that I need to have in order to make the connections with them. So it's just important in life, but it's definitely important in business.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. What did your tribe, say that again?
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Your vibe attracts your tribe. That's pretty cool. Did you come up with that, or did you find that somewhere?
Totally found it somewhere. Yeah, ripping and repeating it. Clearly, it's not mine.
Which is actually so much of what marketing is. I always find it so funny. People go, "Did you hear this new thing?" And it's like, well, really, that's not new. It's just packaged differently by a different person. It's so funny, and not to get off topic too far, but you always hear kids and go, "Oh, did you hear that new song?" It's like, yeah, that new song came out in the 70s.
Exactly.
It's really, the song that you heard is not the cover version. It was the original.
Now you're dating us. Now you're dating our age.
I was a little kid. I was like a little kid when I was in the 70s.
Oh yeah. Right there with you.
Depends on which end of the 70s.
Right.
So Marilee, you kind of touched on it a little bit about attracting your ideal customer. Let's talk about really what an avatar is and kind of define that a little bit so we can build on that.
Yeah. I think the avatar, it's just a helpful conversation. It's a helpful visualization of your target audience, your demographic. So I think if I define the avatar, an avatar would be the persona or embodiment of your ideal customer. So, whatever that is. And, one of the conversations that I like to have when I'm talking about it and having people kind of identify that is get really specific. And when I say specific, I mean, I've even done this myself, and that's like, take a sheet of paper out. When you want to attract that ideal customer, get specific. What's their age? Male or female? Where do they live? Where do they hang out? What kind of foods do they eat? What kind of activities are they involved in? What is your product? What are you trying to target? And get really clear on what that customer looks like. What is that avatar?
So let's build an avatar. Let's come up with one. What kind of industry do we want to play with?
Well, honestly, we could be any industry. I know.
Pick one. Just name an industry.
Health and wellness.
Perfect. Wonder where you found that one.
It's a great industry.
Hey, so let's talk about that then. What would be your first steps to identifying your perfect customer to your avatar? An avatar really is just what's the word I want? Just a term, that means your ideal customer or client or business partner, whatever.
Yep.
So just run us through the steps a little bit. What would be the first thing you would do to start identifying your avatar?
I literally start with the list. And so I get specific, and it's a brainstorm session. Like, who your audience is, or get clear on your audience. If you don't know who your audience is, who should your audience be? What is the product that you're trying to sell? So in my case, health and wellness is the conversation that I like to have. But I also am trying to attract that tribe, attract people that are maybe in my interest level, or my age or my demographic. So for example, I might create an avatar that gets really specific if I want to target and have conversations. So one of the things that I like to do, and the way that I will brand myself in this space, so even as my own example, is, even on social media, having a conversation that my avatar is going to relate to. So I've got to identify my avatar. So I know that maybe a female avatar between the ages of 30 and 55. I mean, just as an example. So I may be looking for somebody that is into health and fitness already, somebody that is fitness-minded, health-minded. They're active. So maybe they like hiking. Maybe they like outdoor activities. Maybe I'm going to find that avatar in places like groups. So social media platform is great to find people in groups that are in the health and fitness, or maybe they're in a vegan group, or just getting specific on what the interest would be. Also, always, looking for myself, looking for that entrepreneurial minded person. I might find them in business type of groups where they're having that business conversation. So, but I also like to have fun. So maybe somebody that has a great sense of humor. I like to post things that are funny. And
yes, you do.
Yeah, I do. But it's
I like your little avatar person from Bitmoji. I think that's great.
Absolutely. And I actually use my Bitmoji. And actually, as a practice, if you're familiar with the Bitmoji, you can actually, create this little image, your own caricature. And in the practice of, I literally have trained this before, like get so clear on your avatar. What do they look like? So if I'm looking for that avatar in that age group, that demographic between 30 and 55, female, what's she going to look like if she's into fitness? Am I picturing her at the gym? Where are you seeing this? Is she going to be in that hashtag healthy living type of a group? Where am I going to find that person? And so I get specific. And when I'm posting things or when I'm targeting that audience, I'm going to be relevant in my conversation to that person. And I think that's where the connection happens.
Yeah, that's really important to be relevant, to relate to the people that you're talking to, rather than just kind of spitballing and hoping that you can relate to them, because you touched on it before, and it's true in business that you need that know, like, and trust factor.
Yep.
And I know that's like so cliche, but it's so true. If people don't know you to begin with, which is you identifying your avatar and starting to identify with that person, they're never going to get to like you, because you don't relate. So,
yep.
Yeah, which kind of brings me into the next thing of why would somebody really want to create an avatar rather than just go after everybody? I mean, in traditional marketing, we've seen it in commercials, where they just throw out a commercial and it's supposed to attract everybody. Is that the way to do things now, or should we kind of pivot and change a little bit to be more specific?
I think pivoting and changing is a powerful thing. I think, you think about just how we all connect. You watch movies, you relate to people online, by just conversation. Can people relate to what it is that you're doing? And authenticity is kind of the conversation of the day. And I think the more authentic you are, the more people can relate to you. The more clear you are on your messaging, people can go, oh yeah, like they're speaking to me. So I know a lot of times you'll see commercials even where they might, a Hallmark commercial is a really good example of this. Like, they'll be doing, and maybe they don't do them right now. I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I know back in the day, Hallmark commercials, I remember watching some of them where, they'd be reading this card or connecting, and it's this story about a, mother and a son connecting or whatever. And man, the information went from my head to my heart. And all of a sudden, even if it wasn't my pain point, it was an emotional connection. And I think that that's a really important piece of just knowing who your audience is, and knowing if you have a way of somehow emotionally connecting to them or speaking their language so that they feel like they can relate to you, you've broken through so many barriers. Maybe they don't even recognize it, but all of a sudden they can relate to you, your brand, your product, whatever that is, because you've made some kind of an authentic emotional connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about that connection. It's all about, again, going back to relating to the people that you're talking with. And it's not even so much, I don't even think it's any more marketing to people, because people have gotten so smart, I mean, and that's not to knock people and their brains, their thinking, but people have become so intelligent about being marketed to, that to be genuine now, and I hate the word transparent because it's, again, being so cliche, but you do almost need to be transparent with people and be clear in your conversation with them so you can relate more build that relationship, because then you can actually sell to them, because ultimately that's what we are talking about, and is marketing and sales. And it doesn't even matter if it's business. Back in the olden days when I did network marketing, we always talked about people who, oh, I don't like doing sales. And it's like, well, are you married? It's like, well, yeah. To talk about being a salesperson, I mean, you sold yourself on somebody to spend the rest of their life with you, for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pitch. I'd like to hear that pitch.
Oh, for sure. No, that's very, very true.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's I'm just thinking how true that is, and how relevant people need to become, or relatable people need to become in their messaging. And to do that, they need to come up with that with their avatar. You mentioned your ideal customer, being fit and healthy and different things like that. What about other types of customers? How about building other avatars? Is that something to do, or should people stick with one narrow focus, or should they have a few different types of people that they market to and try to relate to?
No, that's a good question, Brian. And I think, so in the space of, so we used health and wellness as an example. Well, health and wellness doesn't necessarily only relate to people that are healthy. So I might be targeting a pain point and that is a broader audience. So people that aren't healthy, but they're looking to become healthier, that can be anybody. And so, of course, I have different avatars that I've created. So I know, like, Brian, if you and I are talking about health and wellness, you're a guy, and I definitely am going to have a bit of a different conversation. But I think it comes back to really understanding your brand well, so that you know how to pivot in a conversation and find a place that it's going to fit for different demographics. And again, the avatar is really your demographic. It's just another term for your demographic, your audience. And so in a content, whether it's by conversation or something you print or something you post or something you say, that has to be relevant to that person. But again, I think it just comes back to knowing your brand really well, all the ins and outs. Who is that audience? So that could be a very broad audience, but in your marketing message,
right,
narrowing down the avatar and identifying what is that specific demographic. So maybe a demographic, and this is relevant in my world, the demographic of people wanting to feel better, do better, have more energy, sleep better. Who doesn't want that? I mean, that's kind of everybody. But I might have a message or I might have a post or something that can relate to somebody. Maybe they're 60 to 70 years old and they're just feeling really like they need more energy, like crazy. They need better mental clarity. Well, I'm going to have my messaging geared towards that avatar, that conversation. So I don't want to blow something out. So I'm just talking over everyone's head. Mm-hmm. You have to have messaging that is clear. You just have to know what avatar that you're speaking to.
So that's interesting, because neither one of us are in our 60s or 70s. What if yeah, it's coming.
It's coming.
We're going to be healthy 60 and 70-year-olds.
Yes, heck yes.
Believe it or not, I actually am one of Marilee's customers. So
you are.
Yeah. What if you're trying to build an avatar? So, okay, first thing you said was you need to know your product. So regardless of whether it's health and wellness or yacht cleaning, you need to know who you're trying to target. Okay. Yep. So to do that, you need to know what your business is, how to define your business. Do you have any steps, tricks, tips, or anything like that on how somebody can define what their business is? Because sometimes when people start a business, they just have this, this big umbrella, overwhelming idea, but they haven't really honed it in yet. How can we help somebody understand how or what their business actually is?
I think it's getting clear on your brand, understanding your brand. What is the story? What's the product that you have to sell? So
What's your story? That's a big deal. Yeah.
it's a big piece of it. It's really understanding what the message is that you're trying to create. Understand your brand, understand it well, and understand, I think it's really thinking about who your best audience is. If you could just, in an ideal world, I mean, literally, like, let's envision your ideal business. What would that look like?
Okay.
In that, you also have to just have a clear identification on who you are and what your message is. Like, know it inside and out. And then who is it going to be relevant to? So in our traditional business, we own a yacht detailing business, but I didn't want to just cater to the broadest audience. I wanted to hone it in as more of a niche. And so our targeted audience there is a high-end client base. And so we are giving a high-end detail. So if you think about taking, if you owned a Ferrari or a Lamborghini and you wanted to take it to a high-end detailer, or a Porsche or whatever, you want to take it to a high-end detailer.
Right.
That's a different conversation than just going to a car wash per se. So my conversation is different and targeted to that niche, but I've had to kind of hone that conversation in for that avatar. And then when I got crystal clear on this is who I want to cater to, this is the audience I'm going to focus on, because I know what we're going to deliver on our end, clearly what we could deliver, then I clearly knew what audience I wanted to go after. And so honing that in, then we built a business. We built a business that we book a year ahead in our schedule because we got so clear on that messaging piece of it. So it's important to do that. But when you're crystal clear, there's no questioning or confusion from your customer or your potential prospect on what it is that you do. They will know you because they're going to resonate with the service that you have to provide.
That makes sense. What if, though, because we were talking, you mentioned the 67-year-olds, what if your target, or what if you want to target somebody that's not in your demographic, or somebody that you can directly relate to, but you know that your product, service, whatever can actually serve those people? How do you go about finding out information about that group?
For me, in my platform, and how that has been relevant for me, is I will become visible and try to identify maybe a pain point. That can be something that will attract listeners of all kinds. So if I can, who struggles with their sleep? Who is stuck in a brain fog? That can be a broad audience. And I can guarantee I've had people in their 20s that have reached out going, I can't sleep at night. Like I'm struggling with that. And so that message, just identifying, again, it goes back to knowing what my product is going to do or my service is going to provide. That's clear. I know what it can do. So getting the message out, sometimes it's just identifying with, I believe, the pain point. What is that message that somebody's going to hear that they're going to be relevant to? And I'll tell you, Brian, that's a really good question to ask, because in that, and doing exactly what I said, just throwing something out that might be just more of a general pain point, a service, throwing something out like that, I'll find a demographic that's hiding that I didn't even know was out there. And that's a good example that I just gave, because I didn't realize that there were 20-somethings that were struggling with their sleep. Initially, I thought that might be somebody more in my age group, my age bracket, but not necessarily in a younger age group. But you throw that out there and you're like, whoa, I didn't even realize this is a very relevant conversation for somebody. So sometimes you happen up on it. But it does make me realize that just having the conversation and identifying some pain points that people may have that may be relevant to whatever product it is that you have can be a really good way to kind of hone that in.
Gotcha. So you go into a group, say like on Facebook or something. How do you enter into that conversation? I mean, because you can't just throw out the question, hey, who's having trouble sleeping? And the people who are connected to you through your personal Facebook or even through your business, they already know you. So if you're going to these new groups, how do you even enter into that conversation to start being able to pull some of those people out to identify them?
I will actually, because I have gone through my profile and I've really cleaned it up and I know clearly what my messaging is. I'm not branding my company. I'm branding myself. I'm branding what I have the ability to do. I happen to have a product that can help, but you don't go to my timeline and actually even know what company I'm with, because I,
True.
I want to be that person that like, and trust. But what I do, and I think the best way to think about it, so, to the point in your question, how do you do that on, say, Facebook or social media when you're in groups? So finding targeted groups, I definitely know that I might want to find somebody that's in that fitness world, or that's health minded. So there's
Mhm.
people that are going to be health minded or looking for health solutions in different groups. So typically what I do is I will, find those groups, and you can search, there's thousands and thousands of different types of groups. So find one or go in several, and, find if that's kind of your vibe in that group. If you like the conversation that's happening. I've gone in groups before and I'm like, yeah, this wasn't what I was hoping for. But there's other groups that are in, that have a lot of value to give. And I think the way for you to stand out is when I know what I have. I know what I have as a product. I know that it's relevant for so many people. But what I'll end up doing is go inside the group and just kind of hang out there for a couple weeks, and then get clear on the conversation that group's going to be kind of, I hate to overuse this word today, but I'm using it a lot,
Right.
vibing. What are they vibing with? And then start giving value. Don't go in and start to just farm and target people necessarily, but literally start to give value and throw something that might be just a generic valuable piece in there, and then throw some more content. And as people start resonating with you, I do this all the time. Like if somebody's liking something or commenting on something, if I give value in a group, I'll go over and, I'll maybe drop them a message. Hey, thanks so much for interacting, and hey, just took a look at your timeline. Cool. You live in California. I love California. I'm on the West Coast too. Just
Right.
start connecting, having conversations. That's where that authenticity comes, where you can develop those connections. And
Mhm.
then you send them a friend request, and then you go on their timeline and you start looking. You're like, hey, I like this person, and I like the conversation they have, and hey, they have a family too, or whatever it is
Right.
that you can relate to, connect to. And I think in a social media platform especially, that's a wonderful way to make connections with people. But I don't go in groups and start dropping my website. I mean, that's the fastest way to get kicked out of something. But I think that in business in general, even when you think about the scope of an avatar, when it all comes down to it, I think the most successful marketers are people that are relatable, and it comes down to relationships. And so I think the neatest thing that you can really do with whatever product it is that you have is that I think that long-term relationships. There's this amazing book out there called The Game of Networking, and it's
Hmm.
written by a friend of mine, Rob Sperry, and he's literally talking about long-term relationships in business in general are hugely effective. Those are things that can take you 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And I think you want to think about that long term when you're marketing anything, so that you're relevant to somebody based off your relationship with them. You sometimes can have an ebb and flow in life where you're
Mhm.
in one business and maybe 10 years down the road you're in a different business, but you have found your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You have found that tribe. You found that avatar. You found that demographic for whatever product it is that you're promoting at that time. And maybe it's something you're going to promote for the rest of your life. But whatever that is, you've developed relationships and connections. And I think that's a really important piece of it. And Brian, I know you and I've talked about this a little bit before, but I think it's relevant to this conversation that when you do that well and you can market yourself well. I know I've been speaking and doing some trainings, and people notice me in social media, but now we get to the point where people will come up and they will been following me, or I don't even know who these people are, so maybe we're not even friends, but they're following me. And I think you're doing something well when people come to you and say, oh my gosh, I love your Great Dane. I love those pictures that you're posting. It's so fun to watch you guys traveling or doing whatever it is. They feel like they know me.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you're getting your message out right, is that, people feel like they know you completely, like they're connected, even though you don't know them. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I do. I
Right
do.
conversation.
Yeah, I do. It's funny because you mentioned the travel part, and I'd go to different events and things, and people are like, "Oh man, I just saw you were in Jamaica, or I just saw you were in Mexico, or where." It's like, yeah. And right now, it's so weird because by now I probably would have been to a couple more countries this year, and I've been here.
I know, right? Oh, I know. We're all ready to travel like crazy. But yeah, no, that's such a great example. And I think it's the beauty of social media, and it's the beauty of what our world is today. If you think about the difference even 10 years ago, I mean, it's social media in general has just made the world a smaller place.
Yeah.
And that's a really great thing. And I think that right now, more than ever, knowing your brand and taking this time to just like really rise above all the noise, all the confusion, get really clear on your brand, and know your audience well. It's a time for you to shine more than ever before. Stand out from everybody else. Get so clear on your message that you give so much value to the world. People resonate. You stand out. You make that connection, and it will take you so far. It will take you so far.
That was really key that you said about standing out above the noise, because there's so much of it online now,
Yeah.
and how do you rise above the noise and clutter and just the overwhelm? And I think part of that is in developing that, your avatar and getting to know your perfect person so well that you just already have that relationship when you start. And that's part of it. I'm just thinking back. Tony Robbins actually talked about, wanting to get married, and he wrote in his journal his perfect mate, down to hair color and neighborhood that she lived in and all of that. And his story goes on that that's exactly the person that he ended up marrying, was almost exactly who he had written down. And I think Brendan Burchard tells the same kind of a story, that he got that whole idea from Tony Robbins, and becoming the person that you want to attract. So I'm wondering, is an avatar the type of person that you want to attract, or is it somebody that you kind of want to become? I don't know. That's just kind of a random thought. And I know that wasn't something we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it could be. I think, I think of it more in the way of, who do I want to do business with? Who do I want to have in my life? And, I think in any business that we've owned, anything that we've been involved in, I've always looked at it as like that long-term, relationship. And you think about that. I mean, I don't care what it is that you're selling. If, think about Nordstrom's. Nordstrom's as an example. I mean, I love Nordstrom's.
I know
But
you do.
Nordstrom's makes me feel good when I'm online shopping with them. When I walk in the store, their customer service is amazing. They have a return policy that's so fantastic. There's every element and every layer of they make me feel good. It's a good relationship all the way through. And they've been that way forever, consistency. And so that is a brand. I mean, talking about a brand that I know, I like, and I trust, absolutely trust. And I think that
Do you think they knew you before you came into the store?
absolutely they did. I mean,
Really?
they know, even by the departments that they have set up in their store, they have, they know they're targeting different audiences. You can look in one section, the clothing styles are for a certain age group demographic. So maybe there's a more professional section over here. You walk into that section, you hear more professional music. But if you want to go over here and I want to feel young and go in the younger section,
Forever 21.
not the cute section, but the younger section, I'm going to go out over there and just hip hop along while I'm looking through the clothes racks. They know that audience. And I think I mean, just think about it in all terms of marketing. They absolutely, knew that. And I've kind of grown up with them. So I started out in that little, younger department, but continue moving through, and that experience with that store has developed a long-term relationship. And I think that is really what we do. And so I don't know if that answers your question totally, but I don't think that, I don't look at it like I want to become that avatar necessarily, but I definitely want to resonate with my avatar, because, I think when you're passionate about whatever it is that you're marketing, you know your brand so well. And obviously, if you have your brand, your product, whatever it is, if you own your company, you love it, you're passionate about it. You want to get that message out, but you're also looking for those people that are going to be attracted to your message. And there's a ton of people out there that are attracted to different brands and types of things. And so, anyway, does that answer your question kind of?
No, for sure. Part of that, I was thinking, part of that is, being passionate about what you're doing, and knowing your own story.
Yes.
If you don't know your own story, you might not be able to come up with your avatar, because you don't even know how to identify with yourself, with your own business.
Yeah.
What would you suggest somebody, in the beginning stages, or even somebody who's been around for a while? So let's go that route a little bit, because people have so much of this extra time on their hands. But they may have gotten away from their true passion for their business.
Mm-hmm.
How do they redefine themselves to get that back a little bit, to be able to find their ideal customer? You have any idea on that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think that, even in the space that I work with a lot of different, people, and, that can happen. I mean, life goes along and you can kind of get in a slump and you're like, oh, I'm kind of getting lost in the mix. So, we call it identifying your why, but that's true in any business. Like, you have to be clear on why you're doing what you're doing. But there's also a passion that you can connect into your why. And sometimes it's going back to what caught your attention in the very beginning. And I think it's a really important thing. Sometimes you've got to go back to that beginning stage. And, what is it that I saw that I was so excited about my product, my brand, whatever it was? What was that defining moment that made you decide, I want to share this message? I want to promote, this product, this brand. This is what I wanted to wrap myself around. What was it? Because again, I know we talked about it earlier, but we get in our head a lot of times. And I think when you can connect back down to your heart and re-identify, what made you start. So when I do that in a practical sense, I'll have a conversation with maybe one of my teammates, and, I'll literally just talk. Let's talk it out. Hey, what is it that you first saw here? What's that very defining moment that made you want to say yes, that you're going to move forward in this? And I'll tell you honestly, Brian, sometimes having those conversations can even be like, you get choked up, tearful moments, because you're connecting back, you're getting someone out of their head and you're getting back to their heart, and they're recognizing, wow, let's get rid of all the distractions and get back to that point of what I saw in this in the very beginning and why I was so excited or passionate about sharing this message. And that's true in any business.
Sure.
Across the board. It's just a lot of times I think we get, sometimes you can't see through the forest. The forest is so thick, and we get tunnel vision a lot of times with whatever brand it is that we're promoting or we're talking about. We get tunnel vision. We get stuck in there and just the doing piece of it, and we lose the relevancy of the message. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just getting back to that reason why you started, reason why you thought it was such a passionate piece. And I'll tell you this, I know a lot of times, like in the very beginning of most people's businesses or journeys, that reason why can be one thing, but as time goes on, you might outgrow that why. So you have to identify something that continues to move you forward. So sometimes you have to just pivot a little bit, mm-hmm. and change your vision. I was on this, it's called the Rise Up Challenge, and it was absolutely this fantastic conversation that happened during this COVID-19 thing. And it was basically a bunch of people that own businesses. A lot of them are speakers, trainers, they're used to being on platforms, and the guy that kind of headed it up was saying he had millions of dollars of training, stage events that were canceled within a matter of 72 hours because the world shut down. And so he can't physically be out there. And so his whole premise of his conversation was, he said, so I was really down and out about it for a while. And he said, then I actually came around and he said, I had to learn to pivot. And he said, what happened in this time of my life is the best thing that could have happened, where I recognized the weaknesses in my business platform that I needed to fill. So what are the gaps that you need to fill when you have moments where you kind of get stuck, or you get stuck in your head, or you realize, maybe you're in that time right now in your business where you're just kind of like, wow, realizing that I need a bigger digital presence, or, what are those things? We're talking about rising above and standing out. What's gonna make your conversation stand out, stick out, where people can be relevant? This can be a beautiful time. I think sometimes, when you're flatlined, we get stuck there sometimes. But what I would encourage people to do is don't get stuck there. Like, it's pivot time. It's time to literally, where's the gap? And, figure that out, fill that out. But that can be the biggest pivot point in your business, whatever that is, which is a beautiful thing, where you get to fill those gaps. You didn't know they were there before, but man, can you imagine then when life starts to kind of get back to normal, more normal, or new normal, you've filled some gaps, but you've grown as a person, you've filled in those voids, and now you have a more well-rounded business all the way around, a more well-rounded you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you're so totally dead on, making those shifts and pivots and changes, and recognizing in yourself what needs to be different. And now we have the quote unquote time to do it.
Yeah.
And I think really we have more time because we're not driving as much. I don't think we have any more time necessarily. It's just there's a lot of stuff that we're not having to do collectively. I mean, I know you and I, our commutes are pretty long. Down the hall.
Exactly. I love my commute, but I miss the travel. I miss traveling.
Yeah, I was missing the horn in the background, by the way. When we were on the phone pre-meeting, your honker was in the background, and
the Great Dane was squeaking a squeaky toy.
Nailed on you. That's funny. You mentioned that we, in general, grow and have to change and look at different things. What about the avatar? Can your avatar? What if? Because you mentioned the whole Nordstrom's thing, and starting in the teeny bopper section and now being into the more professional section. Unless you want to be a teeny bopper again. Can that avatar evolve and grow and mature also? Can you keep with the same avatar and let that avatar mature along with you?
Absolutely. And I think that comes part of the pivot too, because I know my audience, and in our traditional business and in my, networking business, I know my audience, but I also know that the conversation has changed for the whole world. It's changed. So pivoting and now being relevant to what is current and relevant for my customer base, or my prospect base. I want to speak their language, and I want to be relatable to them. And so absolutely. I think what you don't want to do when you're marketing is, if you're not tuned into what the needs of your avatar are, if you're not understanding what the current and relevant pain points are, you're going to talk right over the top of their head, and they're not going to be able to relate to you. So I think it's staying in tune with the ever-changing. I mean, avatars to me are demographic. They're people we're dealing with. So you have to be relevant to the day, relevant to the conversation, relevant to the world events, what's affecting them. And even if you're having to pivot in your business, maybe it's pivoting your message a little bit. How is your message relevant to the need of your avatar today? Not a month ago, not a year ago, today. And that's just staying in tune. Again, know, like, trust business.
Yeah.
In every business, you have to stay relevant in your conversation and know what the needs are of your avatar. That's a really important question, actually, Brian.
Yeah, that's really good, is staying relevant and staying in the conversation. So
Yep.
Staying present in that conversation, just like any other relationship.
Yep.
Even though it's online and you may never meet that person,
Mm-hmm.
you might not really even have an actual conversation with them. Staying relevant and staying in their mind is what's important.
Absolutely.
Staying top of mind. Staying
Yep.
top of mind. So because we're kind of a little bit of a overlapping conversation with social media also, how often do you post things to your clientele, to your perfect customer avatar person?
Great question. So, one of the conversations that we've been talking about, currently is that, really if you on social media can identify like 5 main pillars. So we talk about staying top of mind by posting. So I typically am not posting more than 1 to 2 times a day, but I'm consistent. So I don't go days on end without showing up. I want to stay top of mind, but I also want to give a lot of value. So again, it goes back to that conversation of knowing who I am and identifying my brand, my conversation. So if I took, 5 pillars, if I defined myself, and the way I did this, Brian, because I know you're going to ask this question if I don't tell you right now, identifying that was really taking a sheet of paper and just brainstorming, like, what are the things that, fuel me? What am I all about? I want the world to understand who I am and be irrelevant to their conversation, but I want them to be able to relate to me. So there is a bit of transparency on social media. It's not being fake. It's being who you are, being authentic, being real. That's what people want. I mean, that's what I want. I want authentic relationships, connections as well. And so it's identifying those main things. Inspirational quotes are one of the things that I love to give value. I believe in people to the core. I believe we all have greatness inside of us. I mean, let's just go there for a second. Like, we were created for a purpose. You have a message. Your story is relevant. I don't care what it is you went through. It could have been extreme brokenness. It could have been, a great journey. Your story is so relevant. And when people can connect to you, your story is here for a purpose. And so I think that relatability is, again, going to attract your tribe, but it also can be part of one of those key pillars. So I love to believe in people. I've had to overcome quite a few things in my life. I literally grew up with an anxiety disorder. I hit a point in my life where I just crashed down in a real deep depression, and kind of coming out of that and learning how to rise above that and get a clear message is part of my story. And so I believe in people. I think all of us are born with that. We know we have something inside. So getting clear on your message, understanding that, and identifying 5 pillars that maybe best describe you, and posting about those things consistently is going to solidify your brand. So people know if they come to my timeline that, I love health and wellness. I love to be active. I love fitness, hiking. I love photography. It's just one of my things. I have a creative piece to me. And so I share bits of that.
I also haven't seen your photography. They're missing out.
Oh, thank you. But it literally, well,
it always reminds me. I love seeing your photos because it reminds me of home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh man, look at that. It's so awesome. Oh, wait, that's a rainy day. You can have that one.
But when the sun shines, I have my camera out. Oh man. But people know my life. They know, actually, we have a dog, a Great Dane. His name's Wiley. And Wiley, I know Brian's told me this, like, you need to have a Facebook account just for Wiley. He has a fan following, but it's so fun.
His avatar.
Yeah, I do actually have a Wiley avatar there. We do. I'll send it to you. It's hilarious. But it is literally, dog people have come into my world because I'm posting things about him. And, we have a product, with my company that is extremely beneficial for animals as well. And so, because of that, I'm identifying 5 things that I'm going to be posting about consistently. And when I'm talking about even my product, I'm not holding the brand up. I'm not holding that out. I'm showing the benefits of what it does, what it is. what it can give and how it can benefit. But I'm only talking about that if I have 5 pillars and I'm posting, 5 days a week or 7 days a week. I'm going to be posting only 20% about that. So I don't get too heavy on one pillar. I'm literally trying to spread it out. But people know when they continue to follow me or continue to come to my timeline, they know they're going to get value. They know that they're going to feel good. That maybe it's going to be an encouragement for the day. Or one of my pillars is humor. So I like to make people laugh. And, we laugh at ourselves. We laugh at the silliness in life or laugh at my dog, whatever it is. But I want people to be able to resonate and know that I am trying to attract fun-loving people as well, that have an optimistic view of life and, dream bigger and believe in the ability that they have in themselves to grow and do more and be more. That's what I'm about. But that because of the branding that I do. So I say, choose 5 pillars that best describe you and be consistent in your messaging so that people understand who you are. That's your brand.
Right. No, that's so awesome. I mean, you hit the nail like right on the head, as they would say, with just how to post and how to put things out and how to, how to communicate with people, which ultimately is the whole key to this whole conversation. Yeah, we all need to have avatars for our business. We need to be able to identify the people that we're marketing to and selling to and being in those business relationships with. But really it comes down to knowing who you are and knowing your business and what your core is. Because once you know your core and your core beliefs and what keeps you relevant in your own world is actually what you want to attract in the long run.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's relationships. When it comes down to it, understand that your avatar is a person, people that you're dealing with. And that's the gold in all of it.
That's so cool. Marilee, it's been fun chatting with you. How do people get in touch with you? Is it at Marilee Maricich?
Marilee,
is that right?
At Marilee Maricich? Yeah, absolutely. Or find me on Facebook. Yeah, Marilee Maricich. That's me.
Yeah. So it's a different spelling. But if you're from the Pacific Northwest, we all know that that's normal up there.
It is a little bit of a Croatian community that we live in, and that's my hubby for sure. Of almost 29 years, amazing.
Now, see who's giving out ages now.
Okay, I guess I just did.
So another thing that I wanted to put out there for people, just in case they want to understand and have a better idea how to put together an avatar, is this here. Just a quick link. Copy that down, and that'll take you to a page where you can actually put in your email. I'm not going to let you get it for free, but put in your email, and then you can download a template on how to put together your avatar, which goes over so much of what Marilee was talking about with, even as far as a picture and, whether they have family, how many kids they have pets, what their favorite color is, what kind of car they drive. I mean, it's all these little details. It's things that you don't even really think about initially. I know the first time I did an avatar project for my own business, really it wasn't very detailed, and it was hard to market to a not very detailed group of people because it was just kind of like a blob. But once I first learned about, hey, find a picture, go online, go to a stock photo site, I can't even think of one off the top of my head. I have them all favorited, but just go and find the picture or a picture of somebody that you want to attract, and then start identifying the traits of that person. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, that's what you're all about, Brian. And now you do an amazing job in helping people get focused on what they do. I mean, it's part of your brand, focused idea. So I love that. And you do an amazing job helping people do that.
I try. Thank you very much, Mare. Is there anything else that we should touch on really quickly before I let you run and do your awesomeness?
I just think it's a time to shine more than anything. I mean, take this time and get really crystal clear on what it is that you want out of life, out of business. know your targeted audience and just get crystal clear on that message, and know that what you have, whatever that is a gift to offer, and that will resonate with your audience, and you will touch lives. And I don't think there's any better feeling in the world than giving back to people and building those relationships and those connections. It's the best feeling ever.
That's awesome. And I'll let it go on that because I can't say it any better than what you just did. I'm going to put you back up there. Let's see, so people can find you on Facebook, because, hey, maybe you said something in there that people want to connect with you even more. So, Marilee, it's been so much fun chatting with you, and I look forward to getting another opportunity, hopefully in the near future.
I would love it. My pleasure. This has been an honor and a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
You bet, Mary. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Take care.